Hello chess friends and welcome to you out of Chess channel and welcome back to our studies of the most double-edged opening that you can play. Welcome back to our studies of the amazing Catalan Opening. And in this series we have seen many cool approaches, many cool ideas, many important middle game strategies. So we have seen some also cool tactical traps that can happen in the early stage of the game. And the series we have started with the so-called closed defense, and then we have continued with the open defense, which is of course a more aggressive, a more tactical approach to the game. And in the open defense there are many sidelines that we have seen: the a6 sideline, bishop to b4, bishop to e7, so many opportunities for both sides. And today we're continuing with the sideline with the move knight to c6. This move is, in my opinion, a little bit different. It makes this life of the light square bishop of white a little bit harder because you placed a minor piece on this long diagonal, and I'm not sure if white is going to ever really give up his powerful bishop on g2, maybe for not really the most powerful knight here on c6. So in my opinion, it's a very important sideline that you have to know. If you are really bothered, if you have problems to maybe play against the Catalan Opening, pay good attention. I think this could be your lifetime repertoire. This could be really your preparation against the Catalan Opening. And the game, the instructive game in the open defense of the Catalan Opening that I've prepared here for you is an amazing gameplay by Levan Aronan against Vladimir Kramnik from 2010. In my opinion, a really a thematic beautiful game here by Vladimir Kramnik, especially because, as I said, if you are bothered, maybe take this game as your cornerstone, and then from that point on you can build it up with important sidelines, maybe with different approaches. But as I said, this could be really your lifetime preparation against the Catalan Opening. So let's see now the game, how to reach this position. First of all, here Levan Aronan played with the move d4. Kramnik's response was knight to f6, knight to f3, d5, c4. The game transposed now into the Queen's Gambit declined, and now we have the Catalan move g3. Now comes the open defense, d takes c4. This is the way to go. As I said, sharp tactical method here by black. So we have bishop to g2, normal development, and now knight to c6. The idea in some lines is also to play, if possible, knight to a5, connecting the knight to the pawn on c4. And now basically white is making a decision. White will either play kingside castling or will immediately attack the pawn with queen to c2 or queen to a4. We are analyzing today only the sideline with the move queen to a4. So in the continuation of our series, we'll analyze also castling. It's a little bit different because this queen to a4, we have to agree, I think, is more aggressive, is a more attacking approach here of white, because then also the threat is to play something like knight to e5 and then continue the pressure against this knight on c6. So now black has to play a very important move, bishop to b4. This move cuts off, of course, the activity of the queen against the pawn, so it's placing the bishop in between, and also delivers a check, which gives us extra time to react here, which gives us extra time maybe even to secure the king by castling and get out of this potential tactical mess after move knight to e5. So now white continues with the move bishop to d2, and now we're playing a very important move, knight to d5. We are again placing a new piece in front of the light square bishop, and we are also connecting a new piece to the bishop on b4. I think it's a really solid method. It's a nice solid approach of blacks, but of course there are new sidelines also here for white. So for instance, a3, if white continues with the move a3, this wouldn't be good, because we should simply take bishop takes d2, and the problem is now after move knight from b to d2, you have this beautiful method, knight to b6. The queen has to drop back, and now we have immediately the opportunity to take out the pawn on d4. And notice the knight on d2 is standing in the way, so you're not risking to get pinned maybe here on the d file by some moves like rook to d1. So in my opinion, almost game over here for white. White will lose this very important centralized pawn. Okay, maybe white will get his pawn back on c4, but that's not the problem. As I said, we get the centralized pawn, we get maybe the queen active, we can secure still the king by castling, we can play bishop to d7, bishop to c6 maybe later, or even c6. So in my opinion, a nice game here for black for sure. So after move bishop to d2, of course knight from f to d2 can be played, but then after kingside castling you take, now again take kick away the queen, and now we can again pick up this weak pawn on d4. So that's the huge issue here. The pawn on d4 is not protected. So that's why after move bishop to b4 and bishop to as we said here, knight to d5 here, a3 is probably not going to happen by your opponent. Your opponent will simply take out now the bishop on b4. So after move knight takes b4, now comes this idea with the move knight to e5. If that happens, it seems like a aggressive method, but in my opinion this is a line that leads many times into a draw. So I see many drawish games in this particular sidelines. For instance, if you play knight to e5, then many things can be played. You can play even queen to d4, is perfectly fine. Then after knight to c6, knight takes c6, bishop to c6, and b takes c6. It seems so that black is losing the game, but actually after a couple more moves we can also pick up here the pawn on b2. Your opponent will probably castle, we pick up the rook, and now your opponent can probably take out the pawn on a7. But now with queen to e5, I think this is playable again for black. We have connected the queen to the pawn on c7. In the later stage of the game we can maybe play bishop to d7, bishop to c6, getting use of the long diagonal, getting somehow also the rook into the game on the d on b file, and this is perfectly fine. I would rather play here, I think, the game with the black pieces, especially because of the light square problems that we have provoked by trading off the minor pieces. So this could be a method. After move knight to e5, what you can also do is to play maybe rook to b8. It's also a well-known line. Then after knight to c6, knight takes c6, again the same method, bishop to c6, queen takes, bishop to d7. You can pick up this one, and now again black will take out this pawn on b2. It's a different sideline, but I think it's a similar position like this previous one. So in my opinion, again, good game for black for sure. We can in the later stage of the game probably get use of this long diagonal on the light squares. We'll castle, secure the king by castling, double up rooks maybe on the b file. So in my opinion, a solid game for black for sure. So this is, I think, also sideline that you have to know. But let's go back. After move knight takes b4 here, Levan Aronian continued with a more aggressive approach, knight to c3. He doesn't want to simplify the game with the move knight to e5. Although this move knight to e5 seems tempting, seems aggressive, you have seen it's simply a simplification. It's simply an idea that leads into a drawish position, and I think white wants to get more out of the Catalan. So that's why after move knight to c3, now bishop to d7 is possible here for black, kingside castling, and now a5 here by Vladimir Kramnik, fixing everything now around the square b4. So we have queen to d1, protecting now also the pawn on d4, castling, e3, fixing the structure, a4 here by Kramnik. If you play knight to a4, then of course here knight to d4 is going to happen, liberating now the diagonal, and also take out now the knight on a4. So that's why queen to e2, played by Levan Aronian. We have a4, as we said, queen to e2, knight to a5. That's the move that we have talked about in the beginning. Knight to a5 is a possibility to connect your knight to the pawn on c4, and now there is the threat of even of b5, c6, really fixing the structure on the queen side. So that's why white has to be fast here. White has to play now the move knight to e5, finally liberating again the long diagonal here for the light square bishop. But now you play a beautiful move, knight to d5, and knight to d5 is a trappy move really here by black, because if you play now knight takes c4, the problem is now after knight takes c3, b takes c3, you get pinned here. Bishop to b5 is immediately winning the game. So see, knight to d5 here, a great preparation by Vladimir Kramnik. He's challenging now here Levan Aronian in the center of the board. Now comes knight to d5. Look how beautiful, how amazing this game is, with many traps, with many cool tactical ideas. After knight to d5, he takes d5, bishop to d5. Now comes bishop to h3 here by Kramnik. He uses now this tempo against the rook, and basically in this particular sideline, and it's a well-known sideline, believe me or not, many games are played in this particular sideline. Basically white is giving up the exchange here, believe me or not. This is really crazy, this is really wild stuff, because if you retreat here with the move bishop to g2, then after bishop takes g2, king to g2, I think the attack is splashed now by white. White doesn't have so many great attacking ideas here, and now we play a beautiful move b5, and in my opinion black should be even slightly better here. Look at this. We would use then eventually our 3 versus 2 pawn majority on the queen side would have, I think, a beautiful endgame. We'll also eventually kick away the knight with move f6, queen to d5 will be played, maybe even c5, letting the pawns roll. But in my opinion, the attack that you get here on the queen side with this 3 versus 2 pawn majority is something that I think white cannot handle in the later stage of the game. So that's why after move bishop to h3 that Kramnik played, Leonardo went all in and played now in the amazing queen to f3, simply sacrificing the rook for the exchange. But now he has this one, bishop takes f7. First of all, you have to step back, and now he took out finally the bishop on f1. So this is really crazy. This is not so easy to play now for both sides, but as I said, many great games have been played in this particular sideline. So now knight to c6 was played by Vladimir Kramnik. We have knight takes c6, b takes c6. Now we have queen to h5, getting out of the f file, because there were some threats, of course, of queen to e7, trapping the bishop. So that's why queen to h5. In some lines, we can also play bishop to g6, threatening something here around the square h7. Now comes rook to b8, and now bishop takes c4. So we're still following many games. So when I see now the database, I see now at least 10 games in this particular sideline. So beautiful well-known method. So that's why I'm showing you here. Although white is down the exchange, but here with bishop to d3, there are still many checkmate threats here around the square h7. So in the game we have rook takes b2. Now comes bishop to d3. You have to play now g6. If you play, of course, h6 here, then queen to g6 is winning the game immediately here for white. So that's why g6, of course, Leonardo took bishop takes g6. But now here Kramnik played the important queen to e7, connecting now the queen to this weak square that could lead into a checkmate. So that's why after queen to e7, bishop to b1, Leonardo protects his pawn on a2 and still keeps the pressure against the pawn on h7. Queen to f7 here, and now queen to c5. And from this point on, Leonardo, I think, messed it up. He played really an unnecessary move. Queen to c5 simply gets the queen out of this attack. A better idea is, first of all, to play the move queen to e5, delivering a check. After queen to f6, you can play queen to e4 here again, threatening a checkmate. And now after queen to g6, probably the game would lead into a perpetual. But again, Leonardo is a great attacker. He doesn't want to play draws. He wants to win some games. He played now the queen to c5 move. He wanted to keep his pieces more active, but the problem is now you're losing this pawn on f2. Look how Kramnik is also playing defensive of this game. Really amazing chess theory here. So queen to e5 now comes a little bit too late, because after rook to f6, Kramnik can hang on to these pieces and has, I think, a decent game. Is, I think, here even much better if he plays now this endgame correctly. This should be completely winning. So rook to f4, queen to g7, bishop to f5, rook to d6. So here Kramnik is regrouping. We have bishop to c2, rook takes f4, queen to f4, and now a3, getting the pawn out of this light square where it of course cannot be attacked anymore by the light square bishop. So we have g4, queen to e7, g5 by Leonardo, c5, d takes c5, and now Kramnik gets, of course, the rook on the second rank. Here it's a beautiful position now for black. So after move bishop to b3, now Kramnik messed it up almost. He played now the move king to g7, and this move is actually not so good, because you're getting again your king exposed. Here Kramnik had, I think, immediately the winning idea with the move queen to g7, even deliver here an annoying checkmate threat on a1. You have to now even play something like bishop to c4 in order to cover yourself. But now with the move rook to d8, you can again cover your back rank. And now after something like queen takes c7, rook to f8 is, in my opinion, really devastating here. I think in the next couple of moves, white is getting destroyed on dark squares for sure. So this was the way to go. I think if Vladimir Kramnik would have played the move queen to g7, Lemonade would simply resign after a couple more moves. But unfortunately for Kramnik, he played now the move king to g7, which gave now here Lemonade the opportunity to create an attack. Look at this. White is down the exchange, but has here really great attacking chances. After move king to rook to d3 that here Kramnik played, I'm not sure what happened now. Here Lemonade made a huge blunder with the move king to g2, and it's, I think, even sort of a beginner's mistake here that he played, because obviously you have to play king to f2, connecting simply your king to the pawn on e3. If you get checked or something, or if you have to trade off the pieces, then we can activate the pieces further, or if you get checked again, king to f3 is a possibility. So I'm not sure what really happened here, but after king to g2 here, Vladimir Kramnik says thank you, I'll take out now the pawn, and suddenly again black is, I think, on the winning side. So queen to d4, rook to e5, bishop to d5, c6, trying of course to somehow deflect the bishop and then to take out this pawn. We have here this idea by Lemonade. We have here, you cannot take, of course, because after king to f4, the problem is now you lose the rook then afterwards, so it's not working. So that's why after move c6 that here Kramnik played, Lemonade gets the king closer. We have now the move h6, g takes h6, king takes h6, now a check, and now we have king to h7. We have bishop takes c6, rook to c5. After a new check, we have a couple of trades of queens, and now we have reached this amazing endgame study. So I think this game had everything. We have seen a cool opening, we have seen great methods in the middle game stage, we have seen of course inaccuracies and mistakes, but now we're seeing an amazing rook versus bishop and pawn endgame. Pay good attention how this game is played. In my opinion, really instructive chess endgame for sure. So here king to g7, first of all by Vladimir Kramnik, getting the king closer. Of course, he's taking now the opposition with king to f6. We have king to e3, the king gets closer, again king to d3, rook to b5. Here Lemonade attacks now the rook comes on a beautiful square on b2, bishop to h7, and now applying the Tarash rule, simply going with the rook behind your enemy's pawns, trying to take out now the pawn on h4. So we have h5, rook takes h5, we have bishop to c2, rook to h2, king gets closer, and now very important move, king to d4. You cannot take, of course, so far the pawn because your bishop is hanging. So bishop to g6, now a new check, you have to step back, again attack against the bishop, and now rook to a6, protecting now the pawn on a3. So now comes one of the critical moments of the game. Here Lemonade made a huge endgame blunder. He played bishop to g8. A better idea has to be here king to b3, simply improving the position of your king. Okay, you will probably get annoyed by some moves like this, and of course black will simply get the king closer somehow, but now even if this happens, you have always the opportunity to play then afterwards the move bishop to b3. But the most important thing in this scenario would have been that you're simply keeping your opponent's king out of game. But after move bishop to g8 that he played, now after rook to a7 and bishop to e6, now the king came closer to the action. Look at this, you can play now the move bishop to b3, but now a beautiful move here by Kramnik. He realized that he doesn't have to even protect the position anymore, because after bishop to a4 he played now the move rook to b7. This is the way to go, because after king to a3 and king to c3 you have to play now a losing move, whatever you do. For instance, you play bishop to e8, then we play simply rook to a7 here, delivering a check. You have to cover yourself, and now in one particular moment you have to step back from the defense of the bishop, and the game is over here for white. Very wild stuff. So see, this whole concept is not working, so that's why king to c4 had to be played here by Aronian. He couldn't take out the pawn on a3. Now Vladimir Kramnik gets the king closer. Now after a couple more moves, the king got deflected from the action. Look at this, after a couple of checks, now the king is simply too far away from the action. Again, a new sort of an opposition move here by Vladimir Kramnik, and again simply an attack. Again, after attack against the bishop, bishop to b3, and after rook to f8. Actually, in this position, here 11 and resigned. So what's the problem? You get, of course, the king on g4, but the issue is now that you're simply too far away from the action. Now the king is not protecting anymore the pawn on a2. Now we'll simply get the king closer, get it here, and now after a couple of attacks on the against the bishop, maybe in some lines this kind of a picture could have happened. Rook to d3, you're getting the kings here maybe on f4, but now we sacrifice the rook, we let the pawn roll, and this game is over here for white. So great game, I think, in the Catalan Opening. Great opening theory. As I said in the beginning, this can be really your method. This can be your cornerstone position of in the preparation against the Catalan. So we're playing here this d takes c4 move, the open defense. Now we play knight to c6, bishop to b4, and now knight to d5. A follow-up. We're keeping the position locked here on the light square. So you have seen now very important sidelines and also very important opportunities for both sides. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Catalan Opening for sure. If you want to see more beautiful games and theory about this Catalan Opening, please check out our playlist. Here's the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.